Do you want to ramp hard and smash some face? Then Raggadragga might be the commander for you. But first, real quick, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all the newest deck techs. Raggadragga reads, Raggadragga Gorgut's Boss, 2 a red and a green for a legendary creature human boar 4/4. Each creature you control with a mana ability gets +2/+2. Whenever a creature you control with a mana ability attacks, untap it. Whenever you cast a spell, if at least 7 mana was spent to cast it, untap target creature. It gets +7/+7 and gains trample until end of turn. So with all that said, we're going to play a bunch of creatures with mana abilities, swing in with them, and cast big spells. First part, of course, is ramp. And because of what this deck wants to achieve, it's pretty much all creature ramp cards, just like Birds of Paradise. 1 green, creature type bird, 0/1 with flying, add 1 mana of any color. Classic ramp creature, and great since it gives us any color we need. Bloom Tender is 1 and a green for a 1/1 creature type elf druid. Tap, for each color amongst permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. 2 mana and ramps for 2 as soon as we have something red on the board. Sounds great. Circle of Dreams Druid is green for a creature elf druid 2/1. With tap, add 1 green for each creature you control. Gaia's Cradle, in creature form, is kind of nuts, even if it's 3 to cast. Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, and Fyndhorn Elves are all 1 green for a creature type elf druid 1/1. Tap, add 1 green to your mana pool. Radha, Heir to Keld is a red and a green for a legendary creature elf warrior 2/2. Whenever Radha, Heir to Keld attacks, you may add red to your mana pool. Tap, add green to your mana pool. This one's amazing because the deck lacks good ramp creatures that net us red mana. Absolute auto-include. Boreal Druid is 1 green for snow creature elf druid 1/1. Tap, add 1 colorless to your mana pool. We don't run any snow synergy cards in this deck, so that part isn't relevant, but pay 1 for a 1-drop creature that taps for 1 is exactly what we're looking for, even if it is colorless. Now you may have noticed during that last section that almost all of our ramp creatures are elves. Because of that, we want to run a handful of elf tribal cards, but only the ones that synergize with what the deck already wants to be doing. Canopy Tactician is 3 and a green for a creature type elf warrior 3/3. Other elves you control get +1/+1. Tap, add green to your mana pool. Pumping our elves a little is great. 4/4s are definitely when creatures start to look a bit scary, and the extra mana is nice as well. Leaf Crown Visionary is green, creature type elf druid 1/1. Other elves you control get +1/+1. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay green. If you do, draw a card. This card is mainly here to draw cards. It's far from the best card draw we run in the deck, but it does come down early, which has its own merits. Priest of Titania is 1 and a green for a creature type elf druid 1/1. Tap, add 1 green to your mana pool for each elf on the battlefield. This taps for a ton of mana pretty often, but even if it's only tapping for 3 to 4 mana, that can still get us to some of the massive spells we run real fast. Elvish Archdruid is 1 a green for a creature type elf druid 2/2. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. Tap, add 1 green for each elf you control. This is basically Priest of Titania, but with the added benefit of pumping our elves at only 1 more mana. Seems pretty sweet to me. Next we run cards that help us draw into more gas, that way we can swing in with as many creatures as possible. Regal Force is 4 green, creature type elemental 5/5. When Regal Force enters the battlefield, draw a card for each green creature you control. This takes our big board and turns it into a big hand as well. If you think a board wipe is coming soon, then it might be a good idea to play this out as soon as possible to make rebuilding easier. Soul of the Harvest is 4 green, creature type elemental for a 6/6 with trample. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. This is great since late game our 1-drop mana dorks are a little less threatening, but making it so that they can cantrip ups their value so much. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, is 3 and a green for a legendary creature squirrel 1/1. This spell can't be countered. Indestructible. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, attacks each combat if able. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. This triggers whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, so for each of our creatures that hit, we get to draw a card. This can go out of hand real fast. Orin Frostfang is 3 a green for a snow creature snake 2/6. Attacking creatures you control have death touch. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Same thing as Toski, but it also gives our creatures death touch. Great inclusion. Beast Whisperer is 2 green for a creature type elf druid 2/3. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. This is basically the same thing as Soul of the Harvest, but it costs less for the purposes of this deck. The cast versus enters the battlefield isn't something that'll normally come up in this deck. Now that we've got a big board and big draw, we should play some big spells. Archetype of Endurance is 6 green for enchantment creature Bois, 6/5. Creatures you control have hexproof. Creatures your opponents control lose hexproof and can't gain or have hexproof. Creatures you control have hexproof is a great way to keep Raggadragga on the board so we can benefit from their mana abilities, plus it triggers the spend mana clause to pump one creature up a ton. Craterhoof Behemoth is 5 green for creature type beast, 5/5 with haste. When Craterhoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. This is a classic way to end the game on the spot, and is a must include unless you really can't afford it budget-wise. And if you can't afford it budget-wise, another great inclusion is End-Raze Forerunners, 5 green, creature type boar, 7/7. Vigilance, Trample, Haste. When End-Raze Forerunners enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. The poor man's Craterhoof is here too. While not as strong, +2/+2 Vigilance and Trample is nothing to sneeze at, especially since most of our board will already be 3/3s to begin with. Hecate Charger is 4 red, creature type dragon for a 5/5 with flying and haste. Whenever Hecate Charger attacks, you may pay 5 red. If you do, untap all attacking creatures, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. I never thought I would be upset that a card didn't cost more, but here we are. While this won't trigger the +7/+7 ability, the capacity to ramp into extra combat phases is real strong. Clouth, Unrivaled Ancient, is 5 red-green, legendary creature dragon, 4/4 with flying and haste. Whenever Clouth, Unrivaled Ancient attacks, add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the total power of attacking creatures. Spend this mana only to cast spells. Until the end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Big mana, big dragon, big haste. And we don't lose the mana until the end of our turn. Just feels good. Azorius Predation is 5 green for sorcery. For each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green Phyrexian Beast creature token. Each of those tokens fights a different one of those creatures. This is a weird pseudo board wipe that makes us a board out of nowhere. It's really cool. Green Sun Zenith is X green sorcery. Search your library for a green creature card with converted mana cost X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Shuffle Green Sun Zenith into its owner's library. Important thing to note about Raggadragga is that they care about how much we paid for a spell, not its converted mana cost. This means if we spend 7 mana on Green Sun Zenith, it will trigger the +7/+7 ability. Court of Calling is X green, instant, convoke. Your creatures can help cast the spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for 1 generic or 1 mana of that creature's color. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Fun note with this one, you can tap down creatures with summoning sickness to help pay for the convoke cost. Not life-altering, but a neat interaction nonetheless. Decree of Savagery is 7 green for an instant, put 4 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. With cycling, 4 green, discard this card, draw a card. Whenever you cycle Decree of Savagery, you may put 4 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Permanent +4/+4 to our board is really cool and can help us close out a game much faster than relying on a pump spell every single turn. Return of the Wild Speaker is 4 and a green, instant, choose one, draw cards equal to the greatest power amongst non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. This draws us into more gas, or is the gas, to close out a game. Not big enough to trigger the +7/+7 ability, but too good not to run. Savage Beating is 3 red for an instant. Play Savage Beating only during your turn and only during combat. Choose one. Creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn, or untap all creatures you control, and after this phase there's an additional combat phase. And you can entwine both of those abilities, so we get both of them for 1 in red extra. Double strike in a second combat phase isn't out of the realm of possibility with this card, but it's a bit difficult because of those 3 red pips. We run enough fixing in our mana base to cast it most of the time, just don't expect to get this off only using your creatures. Vitalizing Wind is 8 and a green for an instant. Creatures you control gain +7/+7 until end of turn. Imagine a board of 11/11s with a single 18/18 ready to swing in. Now imagine that as a combat trick, because this card is an instant for some reason. I'm calling it now, this is the ultimate combat trick. Akroma's Memorial is a 7-drop legendary artifact. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and from red. That's a lot of keywords. With flying, a lot of those keywords aren't super relevant, but are nice to have, and it makes it way harder to block an Alpha Strike. Genesis Wave is X green, reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less from amongst them onto the battlefield, then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. We run a lot of permanents, so when we cast this we can hit a ton of stuff on average. Next, we have cool interaction with Raggadragga and lands. If a land, for any reason, would become a creature, it counts as a creature with a mana ability, meaning it gets the +2/+2 from our commander. We run a handful of cards that can pull this off, such as Sylvan Awakening. 2 and a green, sorcery. Until your next turn, all lands you control become 2/2 elemental creatures with reach, indestructible, and haste. They're still lands. This can win us a game since we usually use our creatures to pay for our big spells to help close out the game. Having every land you control become an attacker can sometimes just double your board presence for a turn. Kamal, Heart of Kroza, is 6 green, legendary creature, human druid, 5/5. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control gain +3/+3 and trample until end of turn. Pay 1 and a green until end of turn. Target land you control becomes a 1/1 elemental creature with vigilance, indestructible, and haste. It's still a land. This pumps the team on its own, pumps up 1 creature when we cast it thanks to our commander, and can turn our lands into indestructible creatures. This card is basically Raggadragga's best friend. Then we have Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. 3 green, legendary creature, elemental, power and toughness, star. Ashaya, Soul of Wild's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types, which is a weird backwards version of this effect, turning all of our non-ramping creatures into creatures that can ramp us, thus giving them +2/+2. And that's it. That's the deck. Did I miss anything? If so, let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, why not give it a like? And if you really like it, you can subscribe here or on my Patreon. Either way, I hope you have a wonderful day.